Hey, what's up guys? I'm Sam, aka 5am, and this is the Glitch Kitchen. And today we're going to take a look at some bass techniques, specifically neuro-bass techniques. So what is a neuro-bass, you might ask? Well, neuro-bass is a kind of bass sound that's been used in drum and bass originally and then kind of made its way into glitch hop and breaks and other kind of styles like trap and halftime. And it's just such a full and kind of detailed kind of sound. So it's really interesting and it's really fun to use in your tracks. So I went ahead and made a flowchart that I want to show before I do anything else, just to kind of illustrate some of the main elements of bass creation. This is a workflow that I've kind of started to discover based on watching a bunch of different videos and reading on forums and kind of absorbing as much information as possible from as many different places and listening to a lot of music as well. These are some patterns that I've found. So the first thing is the source waveform. It's really important to get one that has a full spectrum and that's harmonically rich. And you want it to be clean. So I like to use FM. I sometimes use wavetable or like basic waveforms too, just out of any synth. Then I add detune and movement. So it's nice to kind of give like a movement in the stereo spectrum or in the pitch or in the delay of the sound to just kind of create some more movement across the sound. So you can do that with automation of like FM and wavetable as well, or really any parameter can be automated to give more movement to the bass. So that's where filter movement comes in. So filter movement is a stage where you're moving the a series of filters on an EQ. So like a band reject, notch filters, notch boosts, and low pass filter movement. So all that stuff can come in handy, and it's really up for your own creative freedom. Frequency separation. Now this is kind of like a mindset. You want to be thinking about each frequency range in its own right. So treating the highs one way, mids one way, and the lows one way. And sometimes that means splitting the frequencies out. So I'm going to show that today as well. And then distortion. So distortion is where you kind of take this bass sound you've created and then intentionally distort it, which can add some really nice harmonics into the bass and also just make it grittier and more kind of evil, for lack of a better word. And then adding effects in space can just give your sound some context and help it resonate in certain ways. Resampling is the process of going back once you've created a bass sound, going back in and adding more and more effects to it. And usually this involves freezing the synth to audio. Sometimes it can also be done on the MIDI track, but it's a lot easier to sort of start freezing your MIDI down to audio and then applying a new phase of effects and filters and distortion, etc. So that's what resampling is. So now that we've kind of looked at that, I'm gonna be speaking to some of these ideas throughout the tutorial and maybe looking back at this once in a while. But now I think we have a good context to get started. So I'm gonna jump into Ableton here, and I'm gonna go up to my search bar and just type operator. I'm going to grab in an instance of operator, and I always just go up to the search bar and type what I want. And then, let's see, I'm going to put this track up to 0 dB here. Now I'm going to create a MIDI clip, so I'm going to select a range that I want, and Command-Shift-M to create a clip there. Then I'm going to make a note at F2. F is a really good bass note. Basically, it's just the note that a sound system can play with the most power. That's also the lowest note. So it's a good sweet spot. We're going to transpose the synth down 24 steps. And now let's listen. So I have a basic sine wave here in operator. And it's a low sine wave. So now we're going to just draw in a little bit of harmonics here in the harmonic window, which is really helpful. I definitely encourage you guys, if you haven't before, to play around with this, just messing around with the harmonics. Like I'll play this and then I'll just start drawing. So yeah, there's a lot of detail and freedom that you can get when you work this way. All right, so now I'm going to turn on oscillator B, and this introduces the concept of FM. So operators in FM synth. FM synthesis is when you apply one oscillator as a modulator to your main oscillator. So in this case, oscillator B is actually modulating the output of oscillator A. So first I'm going to show you guys what that sounds like if you just bring in oscillator B as a sine wave with a chorus of 1. So that gets a really nice, distorted, kind of gritty sound. It's almost a little too gritty. So I like to kind of keep my FM a little bit low as I work, and then maybe bring it up in certain places when I automate. I'm going to turn C on and do the same thing. I'm also going to just play around with drawing in some little harmonics in these. You can be really free with it. You can draw a long thing, a short thing, whatever sounds good to you. That's actually kind of nice. I'm going to put this one up at 4, just for fun. You know, you can change these courses to like 2 and 4, or to 8 and 1. That can sometimes be really fun. So if you change B to the course to 8, and C, you change the course to 1, and then the level of B is low and the level of C is relatively high, that sounds like this. So that's pretty crazy. So I'm going to just keep messing with these harmonics until I like the tone that's coming out. I kind of like that. All right, now I'm going to click up to the top tab of Operator, and I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to change the fine tuning of the second one to 5. You can go anywhere from like 1 to 10, and you can get different effects. But I'm going to change it to 5 for the second operator. And now we have 2 identical operators inside a group. So you Command G to group, tap on the chain, Command D to duplicate, and then you have these 2. And let's play that. So that's kind of nice. I think the FM is a little strong, but that's where this comes in. So I'm going to map the level of oscillator B in both operators to macro 1. So map to macro 1, map to macro 1, and C I'm going to map to macro 2. Map to macro 2 on the first operator, and map to macro 2 on the second operator. And I'm going to automate these values. Just turn that one up because I know that's about where I want it for now. And then automate the oscillator Bs. Just making my clip a little shorter. So I kind of like what I came up with there. Now I'm going to automate my oscillator Cs. These things can get a little crazy as the level goes up, so I try to just balance them out and keep them gentle. I'm going to turn the spread up of oscillator B also. So the spread just kind of gives it more stereo presence, which is really nice. What I'm going to do after that is I'm going to put a utility after the synth, which I've just stereo spread. So the width, I'm going to bring it down to 50%. Just getting a little bit of stereo stuff in there. And just a quick note as far as the routings go, you're going to want your routing in series if you want to do FM. Some other cool routings are parallel, which is this one all the way at the end. And there's also A and B in series, and C and D in series, but having those two go out parallel, like that's this square, which is sometimes really nice. So I just encourage you to play around with these different configurations, but if you want to do some cool FM stuff, this first configuration is great. And then, so I'm just going to drag out an EQ, and I like to do my band reject filter first, so kind of bring it down so it cuts out a large part of that frequency range. And I'm going to automate the frequency of that. So now we're introducing some filtration. So you'll start to hear the sound kind of fold over itself. So yeah, now I'm gonna do some notch boosts, automate the frequency of this little guy. And as I start to automate, I'll kind of listen to the bass and I'll figure out where the filter wants to go based on that. Based on that. All right. I think that's good for now. I'm going to drag out another EQ. I sometimes use two EQ8s because I like to keep things clean, and having too many filters in one EQ can get a little cluttered. So I like to bring out another one, especially when I want to do something like a low pass filter. So, which is what I'm doing. So I'm just going to create a little low pass filter node right here, and I'm going to turn the resonance up just a hair, not too much. Then I'm going to automate that frequency. Again, I'm just listening to where the bass wants to go. I like to give some areas where the filter is really active and other areas where it's kind of chilling. But if I hear something like here, I hear that maybe there should be a little dip right there. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna like chop the end off of that. I don't think we need that. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is some band splitting just to show you guys that concept. So EQ3 is a pretty basic EQ plugin. It's just or like a stock effect. It's just low gain, mid gain, and high gain, and you can set where you want those to be. So I'm gonna take this effect, I'm gonna group it, hit the little list icon, and then select only the highs. So only the highs should be green, the other two should be off. And then do the same with the mids, duplicate again, and the lows. Duplicate is Command D once again. So now we're gonna go down to the low frequencies and select 120 hertz, just setting that down to the sub frequencies. And then in this EQ3, we're also gonna go 120. This one's not necessary. I'll just do it anyway, just on principle. So this is splitting up your frequencies. So only the highs come through here, only the mids through there, only the lows through there. So now I'm going to add some saturation to the high end using a saturator, of all things. And then I'm going to put that like 10 just to start. Set this in the drop down here. I'm going to set the setting to sine wave fold, and the bass should be 0. And then you can mess with the filter here, but anything through this you'll get the idea. It's a little harsh. I'm going to take the output down. I'm also going to just listen to this filter and hear if I can change the timbre a little bit with this. Yeah, I kind of like how that filter sounds up near the top. And I'm seeing now that my waveform has been clipping. So what I'll do is I'll go into the EQ and I'll just turn the gain down here a fair amount. It's even clipping out of this EQ, so I'm going to do the same with this one and make sure it's not clipping out of this instrument rack. All right, it's pretty good over there. So now, in order to add some of that gain back in, we're just going to use a glue compressor on the end of this chain, and this is really going to compress and kind of fill out the mix and bring up the presence of this sound. It's going to make it very, very way more biggerly awesomer. So I turn the attack all the way down to 0, the threshold to like halfway, and I turn the makeup gain kind of all the way up here. What you want is this clip light to be going on and off, which means the bass is just hitting the clipping range, and you can adjust it to your taste. Really mess with the threshold and the makeup gain, And these are kind of parameters to control the amount of distortion that's happening through the compression. So the more makeup gain you give, the more the compressor is going to be distorting. You can get really intense with it right away, or you can kind of build it up in stages. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to turn that up so it's slightly lighting up there on the clip, and then I'm going to listen back to what we have, because I think we have a good solid bass sound to start with. All right, a couple more adjustments. I'm going to turn the drive down slightly on this saturator, and I'm also going to bring it down into the mids too. I think maybe the mids could use some color. And you can also use these chains here as a kind of basic EQ, where you can dial in the levels of each band. So that's just me turning up the mid band right here to my liking. So I kind of like it right there. And then it's going to reduce the dry wets of these saturators so they're not so present. All right, so let's freeze this track. We're going to go Command-T to create a new track. Alt-click and drag on the MIDI clip, and just kind of drag down and to the right. And now, we still have this. We might go back if I really feel like I want to change anything, but I'm pretty happy with this sound here. I just think some EQing could be helpful here. I like that low end there. I think I can clean up the mid-range by turning some of these mids down. And then I can boost the highs. And I'm going to turn down this clip here a little bit, because I'm going to do another cycle of compression on it. I think I might do some more automation here. So during your resampling, you can always automate more filters on top of the bass that you already have. In this case, I'm going to do more notch filter movement. And I'm going to do more low pass filter too. Now I can add some reverb. And it'll sound a little different if you put it before or after the glue compressor. Putting it before the glue compressor will boost it, but we can turn the diffuse down to compensate for that. So there you can hear the effect of the reverb. For our purposes today, I'm just going to turn this down to like between like 400 and 500. And I'm going to freeze that, flatten that, and now I'll show you guys some of the little chops that you can get out of this chunk of audio when you use it in your tracks. I actually don't really like that. So I'm going to keep that stuff. I'm going to Command-J and consolidate that clip, double click on it, click on the name in the sample panel here. I'm going to rename that tutorial bass 3, because I've done a few of these. And then I'm going to put that into my basses folder. I really want to credit Frequent for doing a Bass Gorilla tutorial series, from which I definitely took a lot of inspiration for this video. He uses glue compressor on his basses. He has his whole own resampling style, but learning from what he has to show in those tutorials has really helped my process. So I definitely want to put credit where credit is due and say thanks to Frequent. So yeah, let's listen to this a few more times. I like to listen to what I made because it's fun. We can reverse that. We can do stuff like duplicate that track. I'm going to turn both these down to compensate for the duplication. And then we're going to go into one clip, and it is warped, but we want to warp it complex. So I just select that from the drop-down menu here and detune that by 5 cents. And now we get this really fun phasing that happens between these two clips. And in order to grab that, I can actually create a new track, set it to record, and from this little menu right here, I hit resampling. That's in the mixer menu. If that's not open for you, just hit the little M down in the bottom right-hand corner there. And then hit record. And you can just keep going with your resampling process. As you can see, I did something near the end of the process that I mentioned at the beginning of my chart, which really just goes to show, as I put here as a disclaimer, bass design elements in suggested order, experimentation encouraged. So please play around with these techniques and really make them your own. Just to review, we made a source waveform that was clean, full, and harmonically rich, which was this instrument rack right here. Then we added some detune and movement, which I did with the spread and the utility, and which I did with the fine-tuning of the oscillators. We did some filter movement, a lot of it, lots of filter automation throughout the whole process. Frequency separation, we did a couple times, and just generally being conscious of the whole frequency range. And distortion, we added a little bit of effects and space, added some reverb, and did a couple resampling cycles, and ended up with a couple basses that I think I'm going to save. This detuned version is pretty fun. Really gnarly. You know, there's really no end to it. You can just grab some reverb out. Yeah, so yeah, I'm definitely going to save that out. Calling it, phase bass. There you go. Just going to put that in my bass folder here. And yeah, so thank you all so much for watching this video. And please let me know if you liked it in the comments. I'd love to hear any suggestions that you have. And I'm definitely going to try and keep these videos coming and dive into new parts of the sound design process in future videos. So let me know what you want to see. And follow me on social media, facebook.com/5ammedia. Subscribe here on YouTube. And check out soundcloud.com/5am-beats, which is where my music is at. So thank you guys again, and keep it glitchy.